Hi, I'm Malika Bilal filling in for Femi OK, and you're in the stream. Today, census controversy in Myanmar. Will everyone be counted? And if so, will it threaten the country's minorities? Filling in as digital producer is May Al Hassan, a familiar face. May, what are you seeing online already?
So audience members are divided on the impact that the census could have on Myanmar. On one hand, they feel like it could heighten already growing tensions, ethnic tensions. Nicole on Twitter says the census will provide ammunition to the ethnic armed groups to further marginalize and weed out the minority groups. On the other hand, many feel like the government needs the data to move forward. We have a video comment from Bath, England, from Mahinda.
30 years is a long time in any developing country, even when there are problems. In particular, census are very important. I think conducting proper, accurate, and professional census is very important, and I think the Myanmar's effort should be welcome. It will encourage to develop better relations between ethnic and religious minorities in that country, and it will create further understanding.
Those are just two takes on the issue. What do you think? Tweet us at #AJStream.
Joining us on set is Myra Dagepa. Myra is a human rights activist from the Karen state in Myanmar. She's also the campaign coordinator for the U.S. campaign for Burma. Myra, welcome to the stream.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Well, it's been 31 years since Myanmar conducted a census, but could gathering population data deepen ethnic divisions and even hinder minority rights in the country? At the end of this month, Myanmar, the country formerly known as Burma, will begin collecting data on its populace, everything from income and education to housing and migration status. The government and UN, which is helping fund the census, say the endeavor is a critical step in planning for the future. Well, since 2011, the country's been on the path of reform, transitioning from military junta to civilian government. But census questions about race and religion have many minority groups concerned. They fear it will worsen decades of unresolved conflicts, particularly involving Buddhist Muslim relations and other armed ethnic groups. So today we want to examine how the census might impact the future of minority rights in Myanmar. To help us discuss this is Ken Mong Myint, head of the International Affairs Committee and the National Democratic Party for Development. That's a Muslim Rohingya political group. He's joining us via Skype in Yangon. Also in Yangon, we have Kun Ja, founder and coordinator of the Kachin Peace Network. Welcome to all of our guests. Now, before we dive into the discussion, I want to note that members of Myanmar's government and the United Nations Population Fund were invited to participate in this conversation, but they turned down our requests. Kunja, I want to start the discussion with you. You know, this has been 30 years, of course, since the last census, quite a long time, but the actual formal census taking hasn't even begun yet, and already we're hearing and seeing reports online of tensions. What are you seeing and hearing on the ground?
So the very first thing is that all ethnic groups, they believe that census is important and necessary for the country. And the second one is census should be done in a proper way, that everybody could participate in with a smiling face, without any threat, without any discrimination. At this moment, the census is okay to collect. However, the process is wrong and the timing is wrong because the country is in peace process, and this process doesn't properly count it in census. And another thing is the timing of the election in 2015. These all are mixed up. That's why the census is important. However, the census is not coming in the right time. That's why the census should be postponed until everything is settled down. For this moment, lots of census within the ethnic group. Like for example, I'm a Kachin, but in my Kachin group, we have tension within our own group. And also the solidarity that has built up for many years is already nearly broken down.
So Kunja, you mentioned several things there, and I just want to pause you so that we make sure we get the full impact of what you're saying. Now, one of the things that I picked up on is you saying that the timing is wrong for this census. So Ken, I want to pose that to you. Do you think the timing is wrong?
It depends on, as I talked to Ryan a while ago, I'm going with different perspective. And not that I'm against with Ms. Kunja, she's my good friend. So The timing is not appropriate because first we have to do with the reconciliation with the armed ethnic groups, and second thing is not everybody is included in the census list. When it's come to the races. For example, Rohingyas have been living in this country for centuries, and we are excluded from the list. And when we requested for a unique code number, and we were not granted that code number, and instead we are asked to fill in 914, which is for the others in general who does not have the unique code. And when we are willing to fill in 914 code number as a Rohingya, now we are facing a kind of threat from some extremist elements in Rakhine State. So that's very sad, So if you ask my opinion,
what does that threat look like? What kind of threat? You mentioned threat.
Kind of not right now.
What does the threat look like, Ken, though? You mentioned a threat from extremist elements. What is that threat?
The threat varies. Some they say if we're going to fill up Rohingya in 914 subcode, they're going to boycott the census. Census is not an election to boycott. This is a census, just counting head, counting population. So I don't really give them about the boycotting of this and that, because our country is not a lawless country. Is ruled by law. So I think the boycotting census, this and that, we are not going to go down. We're going to we in this current situation, since we have no way to go back. We support the census because we have no other choice but to support it, and we welcome the census.
Sorry, Ken. We know you support it, but you brought up some interesting issues about the confusion around codes. There's a code 914. We have a lot of questions and comments about the different codes assigned to Rohingya, and even that issue of threat from our Facebook community. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Nasan Nguyen had mentioned that in the Arakan state they have threatened the Rohingya residents, and I want to get into that in a bit, but there's also mention that there's a 910 code that they would put the Rohingya under and to place them under a Bangladeshi. Now,
exactly.
Myra, wait.
And first we asked for a unique code, a particular code for Rohingya. We didn't given that because of we are not in the 135 races. And then now we agreed to put in 914, we are allowed to put in 914 as we wish as a Rohingya. Now they're threatening that no, we have to put in 910, which is Bangladeshi. For God's sake, we are not Bangladeshi. Second, we are not foreigners. Starting from 900 till 913, these are for foreigners. For example, if foreign tourists came from abroad and staying in Myanmar for some period of time, he or she going to put in that subcode, or Bangladeshi or Pakistani or Thai or American. Right. We have nothing to do with 910 because we are citizens of this country. We are accepted as the ethnic race of this country. So 910 is out of question for the Rohingya people because we are citizens of the Union of Burma. We get it.
We think that you are so impassioned about this issue. I just want to bring Myra into the conversation because there is a lot of confusion. Why were the Rohingya initially left out? Why are they 910 or 914? And just give us a little basic outline for the context and significance of this.
I think the most important thing for the Burmese authority to just get rid of Rohingya. Because, the bottom line, if they don't get rid of them, the Rohingya people will stick around and will try to fight for their rights. And that's not just the Rohingya, it's also adding on to the Burmese Muslim population. Because the Burmese authority afraid of the overpopulated number of Muslims in Burma. And if the Muslim population is become bigger, then that becomes the threat to them, which they also use the name Buddhist sometimes in terms of keeping their position as faithful religious people. But the bottom line, they for me, I see them as a group of people that take the opportunity and make use of the name religion Buddhist.
Right, and of course I will add that we could not get a government person to appear on today's show. An official, they declined our request, but we've spoken about some of the fears here, and I want to take us to an official perspective for why the census is happening. Have a listen to this video clip from Janet Jackson. She's a representative from the UN. Have a listen to this.
This is the first time in 30 years or more, actually, that the people are being asked about the future of their country. They're being asked about the circumstances in which they live. They're being asked questions about their health and their education. That's really important because it means that the people matter. And it's a way that the nation state and the government in particular can say, we really want to know what your situation is, and we want it to go on record. That record will be a confidential record. The information will not be shared with anybody, but the information, the data and the statistics behind the information will be gathered and will be compiled and will enable townships, states and wards and even the national level to look at the data, to analyze the data, to think what does this mean, to interpret it in terms of the planning and in terms of the policies that need to be put in place, and also in terms of how resources should be allocated.
So Ken, she goes on to mention things like healthcare, she goes on to mention schools. That's what the information is needed for. Are you convinced? Is that what's needed right now? Ken?
You asking me?
Yes, Ken.
Hello, are you asking me?
Yes.
Are you? Am I convinced? Somehow, yes, because we have no other choice, but to convince whatever they said, because we're very much tied up here, I had chance to meet with Miss Janet Jackson for many times. Just recently, I met with her about a week ago, and UNFPA does not have a lot of power. UNFPA is just a kind of technical consultant, at the same time one of the donor in the census, So Ms. Jackson said a lot of things about the privacy and this and that. But to be honest with you, I don't know. We just have to wait and see. It's too early to give credit for that, And one thing I would like to say about the Miss Myra, I believe, she said about the government fear about the population of Muslim. Muslim has been projected just 4% of the total population of this country, and it was 4% 70 years ago. After 70 years later, still we are 4%. So my question is, why they afraid from a population which is only 4% of the total population of this country? So this is kind of ridiculous, and this is baseless.
Well,
so
of course, isn't the 4%
is,
what's being questioned? That's one of the very questions, and one of the reasons we need a census. Presumably, could not be the argument. Because some groups in the country say it's more than 4%.
Yeah, that's what we said. We are more than 4%. To be honest with you, as far as our data, our knowledge, as far as our survey, we are between 10 to 15%. Between 10 to 15%, they're all Muslim in the country of Myanmar. So again, it really doesn't mean anything, because we are peace-loving people. The Muslim living in Myanmar, we never had any problem, and before now, and we will not have any problem. We are always loyal to our government, successive government, regardless of the dictatorship or this and that. We are always loyal, and because we know we are weak, we are peace-loving people, So we have never done anything against our country.
Well, can I hear what you're saying? Kunja looks like she wants to say something. Kunja, go ahead.
So one of the things is that is the nationwide issue that we don't have sense of security, and everybody is in fear, because one of the things in this census is that we don't know what has been done and what was really written in 2012 that political risk assessments conducted for this census. So from our understanding that in that report, political risk assessment report, that clearly mentioned that census should not be conducted during this time, specific time, related to the risks, so many risks. And the second thing is we could not see yet that risks are properly handled officially and also openly, transparently to the public. So that means the census that assessment conducted in 2012 are not appropriate anymore because of so many changes. So we don't know how that assessment was updated and handled the issue there. And another thing is the code of conduct that's supposed to be implemented by the UN agencies, including UNFPA and also the donor countries, that do no harm. In the meantime, because of census, we could already foresee a lot of harm already happened and still going to be happened. However, there is nobody to take accountability related to those harms. For example, if something goes wrong,
well, that issue of accountability, Kunjal, that issue of accountability is something that I've seen our community talk about. What else are you seeing, May?
Well, I am seeing people who want to know what the risks are related to the benefits. So that's what Larry on Twitter was saying. Should we fear the process and risk the benefits that the outcome will have? The government needs the data. And then there is Mahinda, who gave us our video comment, who on a tweet says, there should not be fear. Emotions related to ethnic tensions can be released for healthy growth by supplying accurate facts. So the question then becomes, what are the gains, or what are the risks if the government doesn't have this data now? So Myra, could you possibly go into that? Are there any risks if the government doesn't make good on this data?
I'd like to say there is less risk for not having a census now than having census now.
Okay, can you go into detail what you mean by that?
Because, like our other colleagues explained earlier, we are in the process of peace talk, for instance, and that's very important. We are still at a very fragile state. We are nowhere near to the game we wanted to, the goal we wanted to achieve. And here we're bringing another problem where we started splitting people into smaller groups. And that tells us that here we're going to create more ethnic tensions. And that's not fair for the ethnic minorities. Because here you're going to see among the 135 ethnic groups, only Burman that has one code, and the other 134 ethnic minority groups, we have 134 codes.
Well, I want to interject here because we've mentioned this a few times. There's 134, 135 ethnic groups. There are only 8 that are officially recognized by the government. I pulled up on my screen here. This is from the AFP news agency showing those 8. They're color coded. You see a few more on the screen because those are ones that are mixed with Burman. But as you were mentioning, Myra, there are more than 8. So this is very complicated. Do some of these subgroups and these ethnicities, do they have something to lose here?
Of course, those who are not invited on to be on board as a specific group, then of course they have a lot to lose. But at the same time, for instance, like Karen, my ethnic group, we have 2 ethnic groups, two groups that are not included under our Karen ethnic group. For instance, like Keka and Keba, they are right now under Karini, Kaya, which is another ethnic group. So if we go ahead with the census, our number is going down when the Karini number is increasing. And that's not fair for us. At the same time, for me as a Karen, I have 3 choices that I can choose. Either I'm a Karen, or I'm Sagar Karen, or I am other Karen. So this is creating a big problem for the ethnic minorities, because the bottom line, the game is to reduce us into very small portions so that we don't have to have the portion of the land or the country that we've been asking for our autonomy locations.
Well, I think this raises a question of whether or not there is government mistrust. I pulled up here. This is the official poster, one of them. It says, "Your census information is confidential." So, Ken, I want to go to you. I hear you saying it's not confidential. I want to hear what Ken has to think, what he has to say about this. Your census information is confidential, yet there still seems to be a mistrust underlying all of this. Can you explain that?
You asking me?
Yes, Ken.
Could you please repeat the question, because the voice is not very clear, that's why.
That's okay. Well, Myra just explained to us there is mistrust. She said, yes, she piped up. There's a graphic that I pulled up on my screen here, and this is from the officials. It says, your census information is confidential, letting people know that what they write on the census will be just for officials' use. Yet there still seems to be an underlying mistrust. Why is that, Ken?
Oh, it depends on, so far we have some bad experience in previous governments, So it's been 50 years. The government and the people don't have some kind of mutual trust. So it might take some time to trust each other. So even though Ms. Janet Jackson said, this gonna keep this as a confidential, so till when? So nobody can guarantee that it's gonna use against me. For example, if I fail in the 914 as a Rohingya, and am I gonna get any kind of problem because they don't accept Rohingya as an ethnic group, or other information, they're gonna use against me. So that's why a lot of people, it's very difficult for them to believe in or to trust the privacy of their data. That is my what should I say? That's what I understand. We may need some time to get a trust between government and the people.
Okay, Ken. We actually have somebody from our community weighing in through video comment about this issue of the government acting in good faith, and then I have a question for Kunja from Twitter.
One of the biggest questions surrounding the census is whether the government will engage in more kind of good faith efforts with a lot of these ethnic minorities. I think from the ethnic perspective that there is a lot of hesitation about this because the government hasn't done it in the past. They keep engaging in discriminatory policies and they've broken ceasefires in the past, so the impression on the ground seems to be that no, they probably won't have a good faith effort and that it is premature for a census.
So Kunja, I want to pose this next question to you from A.K. Rockefeller that says the Myanmar census will feed military's divide and conquer strategy to maintain control over Shui gas and China pipeline. Is this an issue of control of resources in certain regions? Is this why the census is being conducted in this way? Kunja?
So there are so many issues, very complex in this country. One way, I have to say, government is also using census as a tool to make sure this foreign direct investment contracting process is not to be distracted. So, for example, by this moment, this natural resources, especially oil and gas in Rakhine, is on the process of contracting to foreign investors. At the same time, the railroad from Sandwe to China, from the west, the Rakhine coast to China, is also need to be decided within this few time. So, since all these processes are going on, that is also one of the reasons that ethnic tensions are intentionally created by the government to make sure this the contracts of the natural resources sellings are not be distracted by the civil societies.
And of course, you say intentionally created. We don't have a government voice here to refute that. But I want to move this on just a little bit because we're hearing a lot of criticism. So the question is, should we postpone? Myra, there's an answer to that from the UN, of course. I think it might be one that was expected. Janet Jackson says postponing the census for over a year now would mean a delay of several more years in making essential data available to planners. It would undermine efforts to promote transparent, accountable, and inclusive development. Is postponing the answer here?
I'd like to say postponing is a better answer. Why? Is because they have to take responsibility here, take responsibility of ownership here. Because
they being who?
The UNFPA, as well as the Burmese Authority. They started off the process wrong, without consulting with the people on the ground, except the Burmese government. They didn't go out and talk to the ethnic minorities. The words are out there since April 2012. And the people on the ground didn't know solidly about the census until December 2013. This is unacceptable. So if they wanted to do a good job in order to be able to move forward, to help the people of Burma move forward, including the Burmese Authority, they have to go step by step, making sure that everyone knows what's going on.
And I'm going to have to end it there. Step by step, we're going to talk about some of those steps and what they could be in the post show. But on the next show, is the Netherlands far right turning against outspoken politician Geert Wilders? We'll discuss reactions to his promise of having fewer Moroccans in the country. But stay with us. This heated discussion on Myanmar in the post show is next. Stream.aljazeera.com. Welcome back. This is the Stream's online post show. We're talking about minority rights in relation to the upcoming census in Myanmar. Let's get right back to the conversation. Myra, unfortunately, I had to cut you off before we ran out of time in the main show, but continue. You were saying that step by step is what needed to have happened, but it didn't, in your view.
Well, the UNFPA, start going back to April 2012.
That's really far, and we only have a little bit of time left in our
I'm just saying, start off all the way from there.
A bridge version.
When the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon signed the agreement, oversee the agreement signing by the Burmese Authority. Ever since, the message never get out to the people on the ground. And then the UNFPA come into the country.
But they have the message now, correct? There's advertisements, there are posters, people are talking about it online. The information is there now. Feasibly, what is the way forward if this isn't postponed?
Excuse me?
If this is not postponed, if this does go forward, then what happens next?
If it does go forward, then we're going to have to go through this ethnic tension. I'm just telling you. Because some of the groups are not included on the list. Some of the groups are putting underneath another ethnic groups. Some of the groups are literally going to be totally wiped out. So here, the tension is very heating right now. A lot of groups are sending letters to the president, to the Speaker of the House, to the UNFPA. In Arkansas State right now, people are protesting. So this is the beginning of the tension. How far do we want to go is a big question. And I'm afraid it's going to lead us to very violent actions.
Kunja, how far do the people of Myanmar want to go?
So one of the things is different people have different opinions. From my point of view, for this movement, unless the government and UNFPA and census committee make sure everybody is safe, we cannot continue to census. We have to postpone it. The second one is the UNFPA and the government have to make sure 100% coverage, because the census said they will cover 100%. For this moment, in many areas, especially in Kachin and northern Shan State, we have more and more troops coming in, and still fighting reported every day. And one post to another of the ethnic armed groups are capturing by military government. And there is no coordination of military in census, because as long as military is marching in the ground, there will be nobody to come and vote in that area. So by this moment in Kachin, more than 100,000 people are living in the camp. And also the KIO, Kachin Independent Organization, has also its own divisions. So for the moment, the Kachin Independent Organizations that is not signing ceasefire agreement yet with central government has already announced there will be no census collection in their area. That means that's already at least 35% of the Kachin population. Of course, that Kachin Independence Army has also in 5 divisions. And the families in that area, the IDP living in internally displaced people living in that area, and also the
Kunja, I'm gonna pause you there, because I just want to bring in Kin here, because we've heard Myra and we heard you say that you think it should be postponed. So Kin, I want your thoughts. If it is postponed, what would happen in the interim? What should happen?
In the country, around the country, or just in some part of the country?
You tell me. You're living in the country. What do you think?
Okay, if it is postponed and for good reason, good cause, of course. I mean, like Miss Myra and Miss Konya said, everybody should be invited on board. So a lot of people, they complain they are not consulted for the census, and the central government just took the decision. So I think it's too late to postpone. As far as my knowledge, we have talked to some high authority people. They said it's cost about $60+ million US, and there is no way to postpone and find that fund. It's almost impossible. Not almost, it is impossible. So I don't want to imagine about the postponing, but if it's postponed for some reason, it's going to be good for the other ethnic people who are not very happy with the census right now, because they are not consulted and they are not included. And one thing is, I would like to talk about our people. And we were told the census has nothing to do with the ethnicity and citizenship issue. You can write freely whatever you are. If you want to write you are ethnic as an A or B, you are free to write.
And do you believe that? Will you write freely that you're Rohingya? Is that what you're going to do?
I'm coming to that point. So now we are hearing a lot of threats from some radicals. Some marginal people. So this is groundless. The government need to protect us. We already sent letter to our party, and there's another Rohingya jointly. We send letters to our president, our speaker of the houses, and related ministers to protect our people in Rakhine State, because we are not going back. It's going to continue. It's going to go ahead, and we will welcome the census. We have no choice but to participate,
Right. Well, can you welcome the census and you say that the threats are groundless? I think that's an important point that I want our audience to hear. They can't, of course, they can't hear it when we're both talking at the same time, unfortunately, but I wanted to pull out your point, which is that you think the threats are groundless and that the Rohingya should write or should have their census takers write on the line that they are Rohingya, as well as for other members of other communities. But I want to get in the community here. May, what are people saying?
Well, there was an interesting question about this issue of counting to allocate resources, and Richard is of the impression that there is an international blockade in Rohingya, and I think we've found out that the government had in Rakhine State, that the government has blocked Doctors Without Borders from coming in. So what is the point of taking data to be able to get international aid if international aid or international AIDS groups aren't even allowed in? So what do you think, Myra?
Well, I'm pretty sure the Burmese government want anything that they can get from anybody around the world. But at the same time,
and of course that would be true for any government.
but at the same time, they don't want this group of people, and therefore they're going to find their way to stop the aid to go into that specific location. But then, of course, opening the door to take them and to allow them to go to other locations so that aid doesn't cut out. And that is why a couple of weeks ago, when they stopped the Doctor Without Borders to the Arakan State, but they allow the Doctor Without Borders to work in other locations. I mean, how smart they are.
That's actually all the time we have for now. This is going to continue. Our eyes are going to be glued to Myanmar. The census takes place over a period of 12 days. It takes place at the end of this month. We'll look forward to see what those results are. I want to thank all of our guests who joined us today, Myra Dagepa, Kinmong Mient, and Kunja. On the next show, is the Netherlands far right turning against outspoken politician Geert Wilders? We discuss reactions to his promise of having fewer Moroccans in the country. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on now.